Hello, you're watching All24 News live from Algiers. Let's have a look at the headlines. Italian Premier Meloni's visit to Algeria consolidates the building of a genuine strategic partnership. At least 5 civilians were killed after a blast at mayor's office in Somalia's Mogadishu. Also in our news, a man fatally shot 10 people and injured at least 10 others during a Chinese Lunar New Year celebration near Los Angeles. Macron and Scholz meet and bid to improve strained relations and pledge to strengthen EU and continue to back Ukraine. Hello again and welcome to the program. Fast in our topical news, and on Sunday, the Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni embarked on a work-in and a friendship visit to Algeria at the head of an important ministerial delegation. Upon her arrival at Houari Boumediene International Airport, Meloni was received by the Algerian Prime Minister, Mr. Ayman bin Abdurrahman, and a number of government members. Meloni's visit to Algeria is her first abroad since becoming president of the Italian Council of Ministers last October, and the third foreign Italian prime minister to Algeria within 1 year. The visit constitutes a renewed opportunity to strengthen cooperation between Algiers and Rome and a step towards building a true strategic partnership between the two countries. President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, reaffirmed Algeria's firm position and its principled support for the just Sahrawi cause. President Tebboune addressed a congratulatory message to the Sahrawi President, Mr. Brahim Ghali, following his re-election as Secretary General of the Polisario Front and President of the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic. Algerian President saluted the steadfastness of the Sahrawi people, who affirmed their adherence to legitimate, inalienable right to self-determination in accordance with the relevant resolutions of the United Nations and the African Union. Moving on to a different matter now, after the announcement of the preliminary results of the elections for the members of the National Secretariat of the Polisario Front, the Congress renewed their confidence in Ibrahim Ghali by electing him as the Secretary General of the Front for a new 3-year term, with 2 members winning the majority and going towards a second round to determine the list of remaining names. There is talk about the priorities of the stage and the plans of the Sahrawi struggle for the liberation of its lands emanating from the Front's conference. The Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Shtayyeh will arrive in Brussels to meet with the foreign ministers of the European Union member states at the headquarters of the European Foreign Affairs Council. Therefore, Abderrahim Al-Farran made an announcement on the Palestinian radio station that he will inform 27 European foreign ministers of the latest developments in the Palestinian cause and the Zionist violations of international law, including the undermining of the two-state solution that the Palestinian people are exposed to. Algeria's Foreign Affairs Minister, Mr. Amtal Amamra, participated on Sunday in the periodic consultative meeting of Arab foreign ministers that was organized in the Libyan capital, Tripoli. Lamamra's participation was an opportunity to discuss implementation of the decisions of the Arab Summit in Algeria, with focus on the developments of the political track in Libya and ways to unify international and African efforts to find a consensual ground that allows the Libyan parties to achieve comprehensive reconciliation and organize democratic elections that permanently end the crisis. The UN Secretary General's Special Envoy to Libya, Abdullah Bathili, considered the consultative meeting of Arab foreign ministers in Tripoli as an international will to go towards elections in Libya, with an aim of creating favorable conditions to help Libya return to its African bosom. Bathily, in a speech delivered during the opening session of the meeting, confirmed that more than 3 million Libyans registered to participate in the elections, which expressed the strong popular desire to go to free and fair electoral events.
This consultative meeting is a will, is, as I said, an act of solidarity, which I hope will help the Libyans go back to elections, to a transparent electoral process, so that not only the Libyan people will be a light in the tunnel, but also the neighbors of Libya will be in the conditions to have a regional prosperity, regional peace and stability. Almost 3 million Libyans registered to vote. This is an indication that there is a strong will in this country to bring about legitimate institutions through a transparent political and electoral process.
And in other topical news related to Africa, at least 5 civilians were killed when members of a Shabab armed group set off a bomb, then stormed the government building in Somalia's capital, Mogadishu, according to Somalia's authorities. Attackers from the group charged into the block that houses the office of Mogadishu's mayor around noon local time and engaged in firefight with security forces. In Africa still, Burkina Faso's transitional government has ordered French troops to leave its soil within 1 month amid massive public protests rejecting France's presence in the country. According to Burkina officials, the decision has been made on Wednesday amid calls to end the presence of France's military in the Burkina Faso and was welcomed by those who had lost patience with France. Saturday's announcement comes 5 months following France's withdrawal from Mali.
Their presence has no value. They make no effect to get us out of the crisis. So I think there must be a change, and at all levels. So I think their departure is a good decision on the part of His Excellency Captain Traoré.
And in different development, during the 30th anniversary of the party's political registration, Tanzanian main opposition party held its first mass rally since the lifting of 2016 ban, which was made by the former President John Magufuli, who called by then for parties to work on politics rather than rallies. The opposition party aimed to raise hopes of better political freedom in Tanzania, especially after right groups welcomed the rally as a gain of freedom.
We've been silent for nearly 7 years, but finally our rights are restored and we're ready to move forward.
We will organize as many gatherings as possible to reach all the neighborhoods and villages in the country.
Although he thanked the president for lifting the ban, our country needs a new constitution. We need reconciliation on this, but for what we need an independent electoral commission.
And as developed in one of our headlines, French President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Olaf Scholz on Sunday pledged to strengthen the EU and reinvigorate a bilateral relationship that has been strained by the fallout from the Russia-Ukraine war and ensuing energy crisis. The details with Islam Sit.
French President Emmanuel Macron hosted German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, who was accompanied by a ministerial delegation at the Élysée Palace in Paris on Sunday for a joint cabinet meeting. The two presidents commemorated the Élysée Treaty in a show of a Franco-German friendship, promising to keep strengthening that relationship and urged allies to remain united in the face of economic effects in the continent.
Our objective is the same. It's more sovereign, more united Europe, with more solidarity, which fully controls its destiny.
Germany and France vowed to assist Ukraine for as long as needed. Macron said he does not exclude the idea of sending tanks to Ukraine. The country's leaders said they would work together to reform the EU institutions, turning the bloc into a more effective geopolitical actor.
The US is doing a lot. Germany is doing a lot too. We have constantly expanded our supplies with very effective weapons that are already available today. And we have always closely coordinated all these decisions with all our important allies and friends. Our determination stays absolute to help the Ukrainians in their fight. And if Ukraine needs to be reconstructed, we, Europe, will be here.
Scholz also noted that all decisions on weapon deliveries would be made in coordination with allies, including the United States.
We as Europeans, French and Germans, we only be able to influence what is important to us in this world, in our own direction, if we do so together as France and Germany, as the European Union.
On the energy front, Macron said that Germany will join a new hydrogen pipeline project between Spain and France. The Franco-German summit laid out commitments to reinforce Europe's energy independence and accelerate the fight against climate change, as well as helping Ukraine in its fight against Russia. But Germany is still concerned over sending tanks, which it said it would be a risky escalation that could drag the European countries directly into the conflict.
More than 250 angry demonstrators gathered outside the Swedish consulate in Turkey to protest after the anti-Islam activist Ramos Paludan committed a crime against Muslim community by burning pages of the Holy Quran. Algeria, for its part, and many Muslim nations condemned this act. Algeria and many other Muslim countries, strongly condemned the Sunday act of the Swedish extremists. The Algerian Ministry of Foreign Affairs said that this abject act undermines efforts to spread the values of tolerance and inter-religious dialogue.
What we want to underline here in the Swedish government's approval of this business, we never accept this as legitimate or legal in any way. Such an attack of sacredness of any faith is a direct provocation, and by condoning this provocation, Sweden has openly participated in Paludan's crime. We protest this.
And in different development, Iran parliament warned on Sunday that Tehran will take decisive and prompt response against the European Parliament, following its calls for the EU on Wednesday to designate the Islamic Revolutionary Guards as terrorist organization. As part of the response, Iran Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bagher Kalibaf stressed that his country will list all European military deployed in the region as terrorist groups as well. He also urged the Western countries to not close the window of diplomacy.
We are ready to show a matching response, but first we ask the Westerners to think well, so that the window of opportunity for diplomacy is not closed. The Parliament will show a matching, immediate and firm response to any move that means putting the IRGC in the terrorist list or sanctions list. We will recognize European armies in the region as terrorist groups and organizations, and will put necessary moves to confront them on the agenda.
Moving on to a different matter now, we are dealing here with the breaking news of a man who opened fire at a crowd of people on Saturday night, killing 10 and injured 10 others, who, some of them, are in critical condition. The shooting took place at a ballroom dance hall during a Chinese Lunar Year celebration in the city of Monterey Park near Los Angeles. The shooter, who is believed to be an Asian adult male according to eyewitnesses' description. Police said he was barricaded in a van surrounded by law enforcement about 30 miles from there. The massacre occurred.
10:22 p.m. Officers from the Monterey Park Police Department responded to a local business in the 100 block of West Garvey Avenue in the city of Monterey Park regarding a shots fired call. When officers arrived on scene, they observed numerous individuals, patrons of the location, pouring out of the location, screaming. The officers made entry to the location and located additional victims. The Monterey Park Police Fire Department responded to the scene and treated the injured and pronounced 10 of the victims deceased at the scene. There were at least 10 additional victims that were transported to numerous local hospitals and are listed in various conditions from stable to critical. The suspect fled the scene and remains outstanding.
Still in the U.S., the U.S. Justice Department has discovered 6 more classified documents in President Joe Biden's home in Delaware, according to the president's lawyer's statement on Saturday night. His lawyer said that the president offered access to his home to allow DOJ, to conduct a search of the entire premises for potential vice presidential records and potential classified material. This month, U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland named a special counsel to probe the matter. The White House has noted that Biden's team has cooperated with authorities in their probe and had turned over those documents. The U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen warned that Washington's debt default would cause a catastrophe in the United States and the global economy, suggesting that Congress would eventually vote to raise the debt ceiling to prevent an economic crisis. Zahra Farjani with more details.
A political battle is brewing on Capitol Hill, with potentially dire economic consequences looming after the U.S. hit the debt limit. Lawmakers must reach an agreement to either raise or suspend the debt limit to avoid a credit default. On this matter, U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen warned of devastating repercussions if no agreement was reached within Congress to raise the debt ceiling before next June.
We can't default, and we will take every measure possible to work with Congress. I believe members of Congress will understand that this would impose a self-imposed calamity on the United States and the world economy. Congress simply has to act to raise the debt ceiling. And there have been standoffs in the past, but Congress always has done its duty to raise the debt ceiling, and I expect they will do so this time as well.
President Joe Biden said that discussion is to be held with House of Representatives Speaker Kevin McCarthy about raising the U.S. debt ceiling.
The debt we're paying on, and we're going to have a little discussion about that with the new majority leader of the House, has accumulated over 200 years. $31 trillion, but it's over 200 years. And one quarter of that debt was accumulated in the 4 years of my predecessor. 1/4 of it.
Raising the debt limit would increase the amount the U.S. can borrow to meet its spending obligations. Suspending the debt limit, on the other hand, means Congress freezes it until a specific date. The U.S. debt currency has a $31.4 trillion limit. The last time Congress moved to raise the debt ceiling was in December 2021, when Democrats were able to pass legislations without a single Republican vote. But the current makeup of Congress poses greater challenges for reaching an agreement on the debt limit in time, since Republicans control the House now.
Hundreds of millions of Chinese people traveled across the country for holiday reunions that had been suspended under recently eased COVID-19 curbs. According to some scientists, they are saying Lunar New Year travel rush unlikely to lead to a surge in COVID-19 cases, as most of Chinese population have already been infected, while the death toll in hospitals reached 60,000 people in the 2 past weeks. Brazil and Argentina will announce this week that they are starting a preparatory work on a common currency. The Financial Times reported that on Sunday, the plan will be discussed at a summit in Buenos Aires this week and will focus on how the new currency, which Brazil suggests calling the SUR or South, could boost regional trade and reduce, reliance on the US dollar, FT reported, citing officials. Moving on to a different matter now, demonstrators in the streets of Lima and outside, Demonstrators in the streets of Lima and outside the police headquarters are vowing to keep demanding the president's resignation and the release of students who had been detained at the university despite a strong police response and mounting death toll. Let's follow the report by Sufyan Kinturi.
Dozens of people protested outside the anti-terrorism police headquarters in Lima on Saturday, calling for the release of 200 people of protesters and students who had been detained at the National University of San Marcos earlier in the day. Peruvian police in riot gear lined up the streets of Lima and fired tear gas in response.
Today, they detained a large group of students and delegations that come from other provinces of the country at the San Marcos University in Lima. In various other parts of the city, there are groups that were harassed and detained by the police without even the presence of any prosecutor.
Protesters accused police who arrested students in the university campus in Lima of violation, breaking the protocol of safe protests and acting without even the presence of any prosecutor.
We're here to demand for the release of our comrades who have come from the provinces. They are young students and also people from the town who work in the countryside, and they came to claim their rights because in the provinces they have been protesting, but nobody pays attention to them. So they decided to come here to Lima.
Due to escalated anti-government protests, Peru has closed the most well-known tourist destination, Machu Picchu, as well as the Inca Trail that leads to it. The Culture Ministry justified the move as a measure of the safety of tourists and the population in general.
And for more stories making headlines around the world, here's the news in brief.
13 people were killed when a residential building collapsed in the northern Syrian city of Aleppo on Sunday, and rescue workers were searching for people believed still buried under the debris. According to state media, the 5-story building collapsed due to water leakages that weakened its foundation.
Benjamin Netanyahu fired a key cabinet ally on Sunday, heeding a Supreme Court ruling commanding him to do so and deepening a rift over the power of the court.
Greece says it prevented around 260,000 migrants from crossing its border with Turkey in 2022. Ankara insists it has adhered to international law, but if a migrant qualifies for refugee status, they cannot be ruled to have broken the law by crossing a border.
Police on Sunday were searching a Ryanair passenger plane that landed at Athens International Airport for any suspicious items after receiving an alert for a bomb threat. The plane, which was flying from Poland to Greece with more than 190 people on board, landed safely in Athens at 5:35 p.m. local time.
And finally in our news, some football. Ivory Coast beat Uganda 3-1 in Group B and qualifies for the quarterfinals at Nelson Mandela Stadium in Algiers. By this, Ivory Coast and Uganda join Senegal to the next stage of this competition after Teranga Lions that defeated Congo 3-0 in Annaba Stadium. And with this, our news comes to a close. For more stories, visit our social media platforms. That's it for me and the English team. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.